Okay, so we are good to go now. So you can resume the way you just like what when you have heard about the Google Summer of Code first, and then we will actually start contributing towards open source projects.
Yes, sure. So, Google Summer of Code was popular before when I entered into college. There were YouTube thumbnails. If you search just basic programming and stuff, so there are a few channels on which you will easily find the thumbnails of Google Summer of Code, how someone cracked it and stuff. It was popular beforehand itself because it has the name Google in it. But open source was something which I found out later on in my second semester or so, when I was exploring more about operating systems and Linux. So that's how I got to know about what actually is open source. And then I had some explorations into what GitHub is, what is version control tools and stuff. So that's how I got on GitHub. And uh, actually, when I made few of the initial contributions, I was not sure if this is open source or what. But later on, I figured it out that okay, these contributions are called open source, where you have the source code available and stuff. So that's how mm, I knew about open source after uh, knowing about Google Summer of Code. But I made my mind about Google Summer of Code later in 2021 when a few of my friends had had been knowing some of the seniors in their colleges who did this program. So that's how we always talk about Google Summer of Code, how people are going into it, what they do. So uh, slowly and slowly by listening, hearing, exploring, knowing, I also got into the same ecosystem.
So that was really insightful. And the next step is like cracking GSoC in itself is a very big achievement. So after you cracked GSoC, not once but twice as well. So how that affected your career and your personal growth, and what new opportunities did it create for you?
Yes, it definitely helps you as a student and as a fresher. If you are part of open source program, then you get to know about different styles, different architectures, which normally companies do not adapt with. So you can definitely explore open source programs like Google Summer of Code and stuff. But yes, it did do help in career as a fresher, but like after a few years, once you are into the industry, it, uh, it becomes a little bit less relevant. But as a college student, if you are trying to get your first job or first internship, I think it made a great impact and it helped me to get one of my internships, which was at Samagra uh, via C4GT, which is also another open source program. So if not for Google Summer of Code, then I would have never explored Code for GovTech. So I think there are multiple connections which we can make. Even this job, like in my initial interview rounds, I was talking a bit about my Google Summer of Code project because all the projects which we do locally or by ourselves are not at that scale. But when you go in such open source programs, the those are real projects. So you get to work on unique stuff like the way people have designed open source softwares, and the more the project is stricter, it teaches you a lot.
Yeah. So as you mentioned about working in industry, can you tell our viewers like what are the key differences between contributing to an open source project and a traditional work experience or an internship?
If you uh, think about open source contributions, then you have to stick to one project for a very long time in order to deliver some of the significant features. But if you just casually want to explore some open source software and make contributions, it there are high chances that you will be fixing bugs. So in industry, bug fixing is definitely more important, but at the same time, you also have to manage feature delivery because that's what company or industry looks forward when you are working full time. But with open source, if we don't, for the Google Summer of Code also, if we think about it, then there are two phases. First is before preparation. So in the before phase, you try to land some contributions which are most of the time bug fixes. Once you write your proposal for any of your project and then you get into that project, that's how you will start building a feature in a span of 3 4 months. So I think there are many correlations among industry and this, but one differentiator is that in open source, if you are not focusing on one project, then you will end up fixing lots of bugs, which is very good. But for feature delivery, you have to either stick to one project in open source or anyway in full time you will be delivering features.
Okay, so that was a very great insight regarding the differences between the two. Now, since you have participated in the Summer of Bitcoin and the XROS fellowship programs, right? So, how can you compare those experiences to GSoC and ultimately how those programs helped you and benefited your work in GSoC?
Operationally, Summer of Bitcoin, XROS, Google Summer of Code, all of them were same. The how those programs helped me in my GSoC. Actually, I did my Google Summer of Code first, and then I went on to those other programs. So for me, GSoC helped me to know about how open source software actually works. But in 2023, I was working on the same tech stack, which was Rust Lang, in both my Google Summer of Code and Summer of Bitcoin. So I was using same language with two different architectures, one with Rust Bitcoin, another with Cowl. So with the same language, I was exploring two different worlds at the same time. So I got to know about it's not always about the programming language, it's about how the software has been written or what framework they are using to write the software or how is their base structure defined. Uh, Other than that, I think all operationally all 3 4 programs are pretty much same. Like you just land a proposal and then get in, work on some projects, and then you just wrap it up.
Okay, right, sir. So, like I have heard from from many students that there's a common misconception among them that, especially among the beginners, that open source contribution is only for those who are experts in coding. Like you have to get expert in a particular domain, and then only you can contribute in that open source field. So, is it really a misconception? And if it is, then how to overcome it?
This is not very clearly a misconception. You can do some non-technical contributions as well. For example, I know someone from Async API who is a technical writer. So their job is to communicate well with the software engineers and whatever they have written. Like if you see on any of the websites, for example, let's take TensorFlow. If you go and search TensorFlow on Google, you will find very good content around it, like how to use it, how people are using, what are the use case, or what are some of the new features which came up last week or in the last update. So this all of this technical writing is also part of open source. So if you think that you cannot do well with coding, you can also pursue open source as technical writer. Apart from it, there are designers in open source. Like so in Summer of Bitcoin, there are a few projects which are explicitly for designers track. So it's not that only code contributions are necessary. But if you are someone who wants to do code contributions only and are still struggling of how to get into it, I would say that coding or programming languages not that important. You can like very much quickly adapt with any of the new language or new framework. All you need to know is that if you have enough experience knowing about how let's take an example of Next.js as a project or fast API in backend. So you should know how the folders are arranged. Like there might be a folder of Alembic and fast API project. So what does that folder does? Where actually you need to look at what change you might be making in which file. If you know that much, then I think that's pretty much it. Like languages, just you can Google it. Nobody is anything. You can just Google how to write this. Like for example, let's say you want to create a new route in Fast API, and if you are coming first time, you have never written Python code, you can just Google it, and you will be landing on the Fast API documentation. You can just refer how to write it. So I don't think programming language is something which you should be constrained by, but just keep exploring, keep reading documentations. Like these days, you have ChatGPT AI, so you can also ask it. But but I would still suggest reading documentations for clear uh, understanding of what we are writing.
Okay. So basically, like if someone is not good at coding, then we can just start, and then thereafter we will learn many things on the go as we start contributing, as we dive deeper into the code.
Yes, yes,
Right.
you can just keep trying because like the more you will look at the code, you will like keep on understanding it. There might be every new thing. If you just look at same code every different days, you will understand more and more of it.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So now that we knew what drew you towards GSoC, the next big step is choosing a mentor organization. I mean, if you go to the website of GSoC, there are hundreds of organizations listed over there. So, what key factors which you considered and which the students would consider while selecting an organization for the same?
Some of the factors which I had considered at my time were that I opened the website randomly and then I opened few of the software, so the few of the organizations page. Then I got time to read through some of them. So there were two organizations which I shortlisted for the very first time, and my sole purpose was that whatever the project is, I should know about how will I do it. Like you can just imagine that if this is the problem statement, then do I know the solution for it, or am I even close to it? The more you are confident about after just reading the problem statement that this is possible and I can somehow do this, so you can just dive deep into that project, or else you can just try to find out some different organization. And then I would always recommend that always if you read any of the project problem statement and you feel that this is worth doing, just check out the project, try to put a local setup. So there might be times that where your machine might not be uh, comfortable with the setup. Like for example, I was interested in compiler organizations. I tried opening LLVM page, but I had 4 GB RAM laptop at that time, and it was not sufficient for me to compile LLVM directly on my laptop. So that's why I rejected the idea of going forward with LLM as my Google Summer of Code organization. And then, so you have to always try setting up. If you feel your setup was smooth, you can contribute somehow. You can tweak the code and like let's say you have a period of 3 months, then you have certain ideas which you can execute in those 3 months. Then you need to shortlist few of the projects like this or based on these criterias, and then you have to sit someday, write proposal, and then it's on the mentor and the org. You can also talk with mentor that if you face any issues, or if you think that you already have enough knowledge to fix the issue which you are facing while you are setting up the project, you can just raise pull request, do some contributions that do count as your valid contributions. So this is all process like you can shortlist based on these criteria.
Okay. So as you talked about like going also into the code base of a particular organization, so it has often happened with many people, including me as well, that whenever we enter into the code base of a particular organization, then at times we get lost in that very big code base because sometimes it is very complex and people even get intimidated by it. So any tips and strategies which you could share for properly understanding the code base of a particular organization?
And yes, learning the entire code base has always been a problem with everyone. In open, not just in open source, even if you are full time in any of the companies, and also reading the code base is the biggest issue. But the only solution to this is taking it step by step and in a very small steps. For example, if you are going to any project, the very first step is setting the project up very correctly. So once you set up the project, then you have to go through the list of issues uh, or bugs or feature requests, whatever is there. You just go on the issues tab and then select any one like good first issue. Or if they do not have good first issue, then also you can just randomly pick up any issue, open it up, and read the statement clearly. And then try to find like there are some of the keywords which you will always find in that issue description or on the title. Just use those keywords and search into the code base based on those keywords. So while searching, you will find some lines or some files. So you have to enter in those files, and then always, if let's say you found your keyword on a certain line, then that line would be in a function. So uh, from the inner function where those lines you found, try to go outside and check where this function was used, how it was used, in what file it was, in what service it was. So that's how you can easily take a part of code base, try to understand that single part of it, uh, contribute to it if you are comfortable with it. And if you find any issues in doing this steps, you can always ask someone who is maintaining the project, and they will definitely help you. So that's the most important thing. Like uh, knowing the specific part of code base is just enough. Like even someone who is on, let's assume, on the Android project team. So Android's code base is heavily large. Like even I don't feel that anyone would know Android's code base entirely from zero to one. So it's always good that you know certain part of the code base where you have to make the change for a specific thing, and slowly while working on the same code base, you will get grasp of it.
Okay, that was really helpful, Harshil. Okay, apart from that, like the official GSoC application period starts somewhere like February, March, along those lines. So before the official application period starts, what steps should a student take in order to strengthen their profiles in the open source community?
Before the GSoC application starts, you can start contributing to open source projects in general without worrying much about this GSoC or some of Bitcoin or any of the programs. You can just keep on contributing in small or big ways. For example, let's say you are doing a tutorial on how to use Docker or how to use PostgreSQL using Docker. So you try to set up Docker on your system, and then you find some errors with it, some problems with it. You can just raise issues and ask the Docker community how to fix it and stuff. So you can always do all of this before visa application starts. And meanwhile, you can visit their official visa page and shortlist few of the organizations. But until and unless it's February when the organizations are announced, you will never be very certain about if this organization will come this year or they will not come. So all you can do is keep contributing because uh, it will help you in building your profile into open source, and you can anyways learn about different architecture styles of how the repository was written, how they are managing things. And when the official application period starts, then you can very easily go through the list of projects, and based on your existing knowledge, you can apply to some of the projects like max 3. So, but yeah, like from the operational point of view, you can uh, build some, not build proposals, but when you don't know if organization is coming or not, you can just explore the previous year projects or how this organization is uh, coming to GSoC since years. So you get to know about it. And moreover, main game starts only after they announce the projects, or if you know about any organization, you can search. Like let's say there are some organizations which will unofficially announce their projects starting December or January. So you can keep an eye on some organizations which you might already know that they will start early. So going early also helps you a lot. You can keep on exploring previous year's organizations. That will also help you.
Okay, so I mean, according to you, we should start contributing in those organizations which we see like they have a chance in coming in the next GSoC cycle, so that we also have an added advantage of knowing the mentors and knowing the code base beforehand.
Yes, yes. Like at the end of the day, the main goal is to know any of the open source software and learn about it, because let's say you were contributing since December and the organization was also ready that we will send the
proposal to Google and then will be part of this program. But Google rejects the proposal of the organizations, then nobody is at blame at that point in time, and you will have to switch to some different project. So I would always recommend if you are trying to contribute only from the point of view of GSoC, then at least keep two, three organizations in your hand and try to explore them. So at the end, you don't have to do a very drastic shift, but you can always get on with what you already know.
Okay, so now that we know how to choose a mentor organization, how to start contributing, the next checkpoint is drafting a strong proposal. So, according to you, what are the key elements or what is the right approach in drafting a strong proposal?
For the proposal, I would say again, go through the README and do a basic setup, and if possible, have some initial contributions. If these steps are done, then all you have to do is keep on reading the problem statements few times. Based on it, try to search what that specific part would be in your code base. And like I'm sure in Google Son of Code, all the projects are more about feature delivery. So you have to think through the entire process of how you will be building that feature. And that's like whatever thoughts you have on your mind, you have to just open a new document draft and just put all your thoughts in it. So by the time the proposal submission deadline is close, you can just format that draft of whatever you are thinking through, whatever code snippets which you have thought that you can write in those period of time. Like obviously you cannot complete the whole thing in 1 month, which is supposed to be fixed in 3 or 4 months. So you have to have some plans. You have to explore it, and then you can send a draft initially to your mentor. So mentor can also help. If like, I would recommend things should be logically correct. Technically, they will help for sure. So for my project's example, it was about connecting decentralized metrics protocol with the call chat application. So what I have to do was I had to explore metrics because that was part of it. Like they will be definitely give you references in the problem statement as well. Like for all the projects which I have explored, there were references. So I went through those references, like what is metrics, how does that connect with some external applications like Cowl and stuff. And then I have to also explore the code base of Cowl. So based on it, I took some code snippets from Cowl that in this file, in this code, in this function, I have to change something. I have to write new functions. Uh, I have to open a new thread for this entire uh, connection with Cowl. So all these technical thought processes, you have to keep just dumping in a document, and then at the end of the deadline, you can just format it, make it sound more logical, more clear about. Let's say you are going to pitch this to someone, your mentor. So based on it, how will it all make sense? What you will be going to do in 3 months to make this live? That is all you need to write in your proposal.
Okay, so I mean, that was very helpful for drafting a strong proposal because, as far as I've seen, the proposal portion is one of those things which catches the eye of the mentors. And that is ultimately one of the biggest reasons why you get selected in the GSOC.
Yes,
Okay, so
mentors
since
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
okay, so we know that GSOC is something which fosters open source, and open source is more about collaboration and community network. So, in those things, communication becomes a very important aspect. So, what strategies did you use to ensure that an effective communication is there between you, the mentor, and the community?
Uh, I haven't faced any communication issues because, like, before the start of the program, with all my mentors, we have some terms and terms said that every week we'll do 2 calls on this and this day. So we just shared the weekly progress of how things are going, or if I have any blocker or not. So you can also do the same, that after you get selected, you can just set up 2 days apart, and based on the availability of your mentor, you can just uh, have something set up before this program even starts. So Uh, like if you are asking about pre-communication before getting selected, then I think uh, always whatever problem you face with the software or whatever doubts you have, you can just keep on asking them and they will help you in return, and that's how you can keep on communicating.
Great. Okay, so there's a very common issue. I mean, this is a very important question regarding the students who are currently in the college. That how did you effectively manage your time for the GSOC projects for your other open source contribution, considering that you have other academic commitments as well?
So I think managing the time was a challenge at some point in time, but again, it was not a everyday problem because you don't have to do your GSOC hours 8 to 10 hours a day. It just takes you 3 4 hours, and that's like pretty much it. Because mentors are definitely they are there to guide you, so they will give you some micro tasks. So it's not that they will leave you that you have 3 months and you have to do the project in whatever way you have discussed. There are a lot of changes even after you get selected. So you have written some approach in proposal, but then you and your mentor had some discussion and you found out that this approach is not the correct one. So you changed some of the approaches, and based on it, you have some small goals which you can achieve. Like as I said, you're meeting with your mentor twice a week. So in those span of 3 4 days, you have some goals which you can achieve. So breaking a big task into small tasks and working hardly 3 4 hours a day is enough. So I think in college, academically, I was not much pressurized. I had enough time to work on things which I like to work on. It's just that only on the exam days, you can inform your mentor that I have exams and stuff, so I won't be able to give much time, and then they are okay with it. So managing time is a bit easy as a student, I would say. Like, just it's just that you have to divide your day in certain parts, so you can easily go through it.
Okay, so I mean, according to you, everything boils down to how you manage. And if you manage well, then like it is possible to manage open source contributions along with your academics as well.
Yes, yes. If you have good friends, then academically you can manage things very well. You can keep trophies.
Yeah. Okay, so since you have been a part of GSOC for 2 years, can you just tell like the mentor sitting there, what do they expect from a candidate? Like whenever they are seeing their proposal or they are seeing your engagement in the community, what do they basically expect from you?
Mentors basically expect that it again depends on who the mentor is. So if your mentor is someone who is full time and doing uh, his day job at a different place than what your open source project is, then in those cases they also need some amount of their personal time. So they look for someone who can help with the project with less hand holding and stuff. So mentor try to get the best person who can help them do the project very quickly without uh, uh, getting much into hows and whys of small things. But again, there are few cases where mentor also look for how your past contributions have been with the same technology, or some mentors prefer that even if you don't have much of them, they will teach you from scratch. So it's very personal question, depends on who the mentor is and where which organization he is part of, how is his full day stuff. So I had worked with different mentors, so there are different styles of them, so cannot enforce it on a one statement.
Okay. So while contributing towards your like contribution period, you must have received some feedbacks or your any kind of criticism, if any, during the GSOC program. So what's the right way to handle it? Like there could be some ups and downs in those journey, if you can share with us.
So criticism, like I don't think like nobody gives you destructive criticism. Like all would be code feedbacks and stuff. So you might be very happy that you made some contribution and now we are free. But all of a sudden you get 200 or more comments on your pull request, and it haunts you at first sight, but then slowly and slowly you will find out that these are all nits which are important for the project. So I think like uh, nobody will give you very destructive criticism. So it's all good. It will help you improve more and more. It will make you a clean coder because once they criticize you for something, then for the next time when you are doing the same thing, you will always keep care of if I will push this wrong, then they will again pinpoint me and things. Even like at the end of the day, it will increase my own workload. So you'll be double sure of whatever you are doing for the next time. So I think criticism is important. It should be there.
Okay, so explained well. Can you tell us like in these days, you don't see a lot many people participating in open source projects. So if you can just brief us about what is the biggest advantages of doing open source contributions and how it is going to improve the tech ecosystem in the future.
Open source is really important because if you observe the word computer science, then there is this term science in computer science. So, like research papers and stuff, they are open publicly. If they are open and publicly available, then people can use the existing thing, build something on top of it, and that's how the ecosystem grows around something. Similarly, for open source and softwares, the same thing is happening. That let's take an example of uh, this Kubernetes. So Google open source this tool, and then there are multiple softwares which are built on top of it. Like uh, people just took Kubernetes as base, and then they created UIs which help you go around it, and then the entire organization CNCF built a suite of tools around it. All of them are open source, so it is growing. It is important, and if you look at even in history of computer science, the operating systems were open source, Linux and stuff, and then based like taking it as a base, people made all different kind of operating systems. Today we are using mobile phones, and all the mobile phones are on Android. Android is again on Linux. So if not Linux, then you would never have Android. So having the thought of it would not be yet possible very easily the way we are using it without even knowing of how things have grown over time. And then there are, let's say, the cases where there are multiple databases, multiple programming languages coming up every now and then. Frameworks are coming in front end. So every third day there is a new framework which takes one of them as base and addresses some of the problems which they have. So it's a growing ecosystem. It is really important. Like these days, if you see about AI, then there are LLM observability tools. So those are also taking one as base, or if one tool has problem, then someone will clone it and use it. And then there are some industry leaders like AWS. So AWS used Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch was another open source project, and then they took it as base and created their own open search features. So it's important for growing. And like the entire tech ecosystem is growing uh, mostly on the open source itself. Like anything which is proprietary, most of it is taken as based from existing open source software itself.
Yeah, you explained it very nicely, Harshil. Okay, so since now if you're working in an industry, so do you have any plan in the future of contributing towards open source as well? Like, have you made any plans or you're just stopped with right here?
Yes, yes, I'm still contributing to open source. Like uh, I have definitely plans. Like contributing to industries a part of my job, but apart from it, as a hobby, I am still contributing, and I will like anyone and everyone will in some or the other way contribute to open source projects because even in industry, let's take an example. If you are using a specific tool and you find out that when you go at scale, that tool does not have the ability to allow you some of the features or something, then we can just raise this issue to them, ask them that we are using this, we need this. Can you please help us with that? So they will also help at times, and you can also contribute. So there are multiple examples of people doing it, and we are also doing it. So I think that I'm no way going away from open source. The frequency has definitely slowed down. In college, for me, it was everything open source, open source. But now things have slowed down a bit. But yes, it's not completely going to be zero.
Great. Okay, so we have got a question from Akshay Reddy. So he asks, like, what are the new skills which we can learn during a GSOC cycle while preparing for it, and even if we get selected into it?
Most important skill is the meta skill, like the art of reading the code base and just finding your part where you have to contribute, because that's all you need in your job as well. Like even we have so many services, so and I haven't still read through every code base, every documentation which is available, but I have a task which I have to do, so I'll quickly go through it. I'll find it in code base and I'll start contributing. Things will work. So that is one of the best skill which I think anyone can learn with open source or Google Summer of Code project. That finding the right place and what you have to do, you can just quickly do it. You don't have to wait for someone to come and tell you that this is where you have to do the fix. You can just easily fix it if you have worked in any of the open source programs. I think I've met many people, many of my friends, and some working partners, and all of them had this great skill that they can quickly figure things out even without telling them.
Okay. I hope this would have solved this doubt. We have another question from Rahul Rai, like how to approach project maintainers before contributions.
Just uh, play with software a little bit, use the software, install it, do a setup of it, and whatever you think is wrong with the software, just raise these issues, raise your concerns to them. Let's say there is something which is not performant. For example, if somewhere it is taking lots of time to load, or anything that is happening. Let's say you are using an operating system and there is a bug in the operating system that if you open a panel, then the panel goes blank or something. Just raise it, and then the maintainer will explain you like if it is really a bug or if that is something which we have thought of to avoid some other big problem. You can always communicate about the project to any of the project maintainers, and uh, things will work out.
Okay, great. So that was very great to hear from you, Harshil. Now, can you just tell us, like we are going to end the session in some time. So if you can leave us with a piece of advice for all the viewers for the next ESOP cycle.
Advice, my advice would be that always learn about how the history has been in software, because whatever which we see is existing today is taken from the base which was already existing. So if you will learn a lot of stuff which was done in 1980s or 1990s, then I think that will help you understand the things which people are doing today. Like let's say for example AWS. When I was in college, I found AWS is super extremely complex thing which I thought I will never be able to understand. I will never have my hands on it. But at the end of the day, DevOps and all those things are part of basic concepts like operating system and computer network. So both of them combined is what AWS is built of. So always try to know the history, and that is how we will know about a software and category of software. And like the way Google Summer of Code brings the project, like this GNU or GNU is itself an organization. Then there are compilers, compiler related projects which are there. Then there are multiple projects. So knowing the history will help you in learning things very quickly of what exists today. And that is the only advice which I will give in order to be very comfortable with open source and how the things were built.
Okay, so that was really insightful, Harshil. So this marks the end of this really, really inspiring session with you. Thank you for being here with us today. And I'm sure that your insights would have given the audience a very clear picture of how to start and, of course, how to sustain the open source journey, especially GSoC. So a big thank you to all the viewers as well who stayed with us throughout the session. And I look forward to see you all in the next one as well. Until then, goodbye and may the source be with you.
Cool, cool. Thank you. Thanks for inviting.